Hey everyone, I'm Chef Justine. Welcome to my kitchen. Today we will be doing some vegetarian calzones. We're gonna start by preparing the dough. You do not have to prepare the dough if you don't feel comfortable with that. You can go ahead and buy bread dough or pizza dough that's already made, but make sure that it's a dough and not, like the pre-rolled crust, partially cooked crust. So don't do that. In my bowl here, I have 2 cups of whole wheat flour and 2 cups of white flour with about a tablespoon of brown sugar. Also, if you hear a little squeal in the background, don't mind that. That's just my baby. Now you can get just a packet of yeast if you want, or you can get like a jar of it. This is a quick rise instant yeast that I prefer to use. So that's what we'll do. I'm just gonna dump it in here. And if you're using the jar of yeast, you can use about 2 to 2 1/4 teaspoons. I have my water here. It's tepid, room temperature, slightly on the warmer side. You don't want it hot because you'll kill the yeast. So I have about 2 cups of water here. Just mix that right in. Again, you don't have to make your dough. You can go ahead and buy some if you'd like. No problems with that. I'm just showing you guys how to make a quote-unquote brown crust if that's what you prefer. So once it becomes like this, kind of shaggy, just dump it out onto your clean countertop. And then we're gonna knead. If you don't know how to knead, then this is the perfect time to learn. So you're just gonna try and bring it all together. What I like to do is pull with my fingertips, push with my palms, rotate, pull, push, rotate, pull, push, rotate, and just do that for a few minutes, about 5 minutes or so, until it's nice and smooth. You might need to have a little extra flour on hand if it's extra sticky, which I think I'm gonna. So I didn't end up needing extra flour for this. And the way you can tell is if it's just so stuck to your hands. This isn't too bad, but if it's so stuck to your hands that it's like stretching and pulling apart, add a little extra flour. It could stand to be slightly drier than this, but it's honestly, like, it's fine. If I were to add extra flour, a tablespoon or 2 at most. I don't think I need it though. Now, if you look at this, it's quite smooth. It's nice. It's not really lumpy. It always gets a lot smoother when you're using the mixing bowl, but doing it by hand, this is pretty perfect. So I'm gonna put this in the bowl. With this pizza dough recipe, we don't have to let it rise. You can if you want to. You can even do it the day before and let it rise in the fridge if you want, but it's not necessary. This in 20 minutes, ready to go. I'm just gonna wash my hands. All right. So now that our hands and our countertop are clean again, we'll move on to cutting and cooking our veggies. So I'm gonna turn on my hot plate here. Excuse me. So I'm gonna I turned on my hot plate. I'm just gonna cut up my zucchini. Now you can do zucchini, excuse me, eggplant. You can do anything you want. Today we're gonna do some zucchini. You can do both even. What's actually really great in here is roasted peppers. You can roast them yourself or you can buy them in the jar. They're kind of stored in oil and they're really, really good. I like to keep the skin on. That's where all the vitamins and the fiber is. So I like to do that. I'm just gonna cut them in like little sheets like this. You could cube them, you can do whatever you want. This is just how I prefer to do it. I'm gonna cut up some mushrooms. I already washed them. And I'm just gonna slice. And lastly, my onions. This is totally easy to personalize. You can put whatever you want in there. You can put meat if you want. You can put pepperoni, you can put chicken, literally anything you want. You can put herbs. You could just put sauce and cheese if that's all you want. I forgot to mention, preheat your oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. If you haven't done it already, that's fine. Just do it now. It's okay. And so far I have my onions, my mushrooms, and my zucchini all cut up. I even have a little bit of spinach here. I'm going to cook my vegetables before putting them into the calzone. I'm going to add about a tablespoon or two of olive oil. As you can see, my pan is smoking. It is ready to go. So I'll start with my onions. Now at this point you can season it or not. I always season everything, and that's not to say that I go heavy on the seasoning. It's just that we're building layers of flavor here. So we want to make sure that it's flavorful. Healthy food does not have to be bland, and you don't have to completely cut out salt. Of course we shouldn't, overdo it on the salt, but there's no reason to not include some salt into your meals. If you wanted, you could cook everything all together, or you can keep it separate if you're personalizing it for like different people in your family. But if it's just for you, you can eventually just throw it all in. What am I gonna do? I'm going to cook all of mine separately because I have different people in my house who are going to be eating this. But again, you can just throw it all in together if you want. But I highly recommend starting off the onions first because they take longest. And then the mushrooms, if you're doing this exact recipe, the mushrooms not long afterwards, and then the zucchini. A little extra of olive oil. Now you have a few different options when it comes to the onions. You could cook them at a very low temperature, put a lid on it, and give it about 30 to 45 minutes to cook and caramelize. When I say cooking it low, I mean low, like at a 2 or a 3, like not even at a medium heat yet. That's if you want them to be like really soft and caramelized, or you can saute them as I just did, which when you're sauteing something, you're cooking it at a higher temperature and you just kind of want to brown it and cook it halfway or to al dente. And I'm quite happy with the color of these onions. It still has a bit of a bite in it when you it still has a bit of texture when you bite into it. It's not completely soft, So I'm gonna take these off and I'm gonna actually just use them as is. Now in the same pan, I'm not gonna wash it in between because it's all going into the same thing and there's no allergies here, but if there's, again, allergies for people in your house, go ahead and wash that pan in between. So I'm gonna put another drizzle of olive oil. You can tell it's hot, it's smoking, the oil just kind of melts to the sides. And I'm gonna start cooking my mushrooms next. Again, just a little bit of salt. And let that cook down a bit. Don't forget to put some pepper. Mushrooms take a little longer, so while we're waiting, I'm gonna start while we're waiting for the mushrooms to cook, we're gonna start on the sauce. So again, a little bit of, we're gonna start on the sauce. So I have just a can of crushed tomatoes or tomato sauce, however you wanna word it. And I'm gonna put a little bit of salt. You can put a little bit of tomato paste too if you like it, if you like having like a thicker sauce. So salt, pepper, I'm gonna do some basil. You can put as much or as little of this as you want. I'm just using the dry stuff. It works perfectly fine. You can use fresh if you'd like, but it's not necessary. And the dry stuff is, you know, way more inexpensive, so it's your call. If you wanted, you could put a splash of honey or maple syrup in there if you want. It just helps with the acidity. Again, it's not necessary, but you can do that. I'm gonna actually add a bit of garlic to my sauce. You don't have to do this. Or you can even add it directly. Actually, wait a second. I think I know where it is. If you want, you could add it directly to your calzone, like inside of it, but I'm gonna put mine in the sauce. Just watch your mushrooms. Mushrooms absorb quite a bit, so you might have to put a little extra of the olive oil in here and there. If you wanted, you could also just roast. You could throw all of these veggies in a roasting pan and throw them in the oven, if you wanted. It's just the only downside of that is that everything kind of cooks at a different rate. So you might have some things that are more cooked than the other. So just be aware if that's what you feel like you want to do. So I'm putting 2 cloves of garlic into my sauce. You can chop it if you'd like. I'm going to use a microplaner right here. It's just so much easier. You can even put a bit of Parmesan cheese in your sauce if you want. That's really, really good. Give that a little mix. And the great thing about the sauce is that you can also, if you have any left over, you can use it to dip your calzone in. The mushrooms are almost done. I like to make sure they're very well cooked because Mushrooms tend to hold a lot of water, and I don't want a bunch of water making my calzone dough all soggy and mushy. Now, just looking at this, I think I want to put even more herbs in there. Again, you don't have to worry about how much you're putting in there. It's herbs, it's just flavor. They're not bad for you at all, and they have virtually no calories. Actually have vitamins and whatnot. There's nutritional value to herbs, so. If you don't want to do like the oregano and the basil, you could always just use Italian, the Italian seasoning mix with all the herbs that are mixed into the little container, so that helps too. I'd say these mushrooms are pretty well done. Next, again in the same pan, I'm going to add my zucchini. It's literally just a little pinch, a little sprinkle, just adding the layer. If you're really unsure about it, then don't add it if it really bothers you that much. See, there's a beautiful, beautiful color on these zucchini sheets. They're really, really nice, and that's gonna just help bring out the flavor. It's gonna even give it a bit of a sweet taste, because that's what that is. It's the browning that occurs in vegetables. That is the sugars coming out, and they're nice and caramelized, and it gives it a nice kind of a sweet flavor. So that's gonna be good. And just like our mushroom, zucchini tends to carry a lot of water, so just be sure that they're nice and cooked all the way through, so we don't carry too much into our calzone. Now, what you can even do is put a bit of paper towel at the bottom of whatever container you're going to hold that in, or on a plate, whatever it is you're using. And that'll just kind of absorb any moisture that might be left. Lastly, I'm going to cook some spinach up. You can also blanch it if you want to, and if you don't know what blanching is, it just means to like boil for a few seconds. So now we're going to move on to assembling our calzones. This may look like a lot of, containers and stuff in front of you. You do not have to store everything in its own little container if you're going to be cooking it all right away. It's just to show you like the separate components of it. If I were doing this at home, like not on camera, I'd have it all on a plate or even just resting on my cutting board. Like you don't need to dirty all of those dishes at the same time. So don't stress about that. You don't have to do that. So, like I said, we will move on to assembling. So the dough, as I said, let it rest for about 20 or so minutes, which I did. And now look at that. It's good to use when you poke it and the hole stays. So, hold on, before I explain that. Because what happens when we're kneading the dough, we activate that gluten and sometimes it can get really tough. And what we want to do is just let that gluten relax, which is what we did. And you can tell because, like I said, the holes are just staying. It's not bouncing back. I used 4 cups of flour altogether, so I know I can do at least 8 calzones. Now, you can use your fingers to stretch it out like I'm doing right now, which is what I usually do, or for the purpose of the filming, I'll take out my rolling pin and you can just roll it out as such. You want it almost like an oval. And you want it thin enough, but you don't want it so thin that you can see through it. And don't worry if they're ugly. Most of my calzones end up ugly anyway, so. All right. I'm going to start with my sauce here. And then I'm going to layer a bit of the zucchini, still kind of hot. A little bit of onion. Don't be afraid to really pack in the stuff too. Mushroom. Some spinach, and one of my favorite things ever to put in a calzone, some ricotta cheese. I'm gonna put a bit of mozzarella as well. Again, you can personalize these. You don't have to put the ricotta, you don't have to put the mozzarella, you don't have to put any of these ingredients. You can do whatever you want. If it's a little sticky, you might want to flour your counter a little bit. But you're going to pull this over. And I take from under. And I pull it on top. I pull it over and I just kind of pinch. So I'm going to put a bit of flour, just a little bit, on my counter, because it's a little bit sticky. We want to roll it out kind of like an oval shape. bad. So you see it's kind of like ovalish, rectangular. That's what we want. Now I'm going to put my sauce first. I'm going to layer everything. This isn't a very thick sauce because I did not put any tomato paste, but it's still good nonetheless. And I'm going to put some zucchini. I'm going to put mushrooms. Don't be afraid to pack everything in there. My onions. My spinach. A little bit of ricotta cheese. And a bit of mozzarella, just because I like that cheese pull. So now what I'm going to do is fold this over, and I'm going to pull from underneath and pinch. And that is your calzone. If you have one of these, this is called like a bench scraper. It's really good to just help get everything up, unstuck. That's your calzone, your pizza pocket, whatever you want to call it. So if you have any little ones at home who are like under a year old, experimenting with food and all that, I highly suggest making them little pizza rolls. I put my pizza sauce and a little bit of ricotta in here. And then I just roll it up. It's not very pretty, but I promise you the little ones love it. My baby goes to town on this. And I'm just going to cook it in like one big roll here and then just cut it for her afterwards. So here are the calzones before they go into the oven. We want to cook them at 450 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 or so minutes. You can also do these on the barbecue, and they're a lot faster on the barbecue, and they're really good. They come out, they'll be ready to eat. Poor baby.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
All right, ready.
Ready? All right. So these are our calzones. You see how it's got a nice little browning to them. It's a little crusty at the top. So I'm going to take this pretty one right here. Show you guys how it looks on the inside. Give a little taste test. Now this, you know, most of it is optional, but this again, completely optional. I like to have a little balsamic glaze on my calzone, so I'm just gonna do that. Mind you, if you're on the go and you need to just grab something with your hand and eat it, clearly this is not gonna work. Don't put the drizzle if you're just gonna eat it with your hand. And I even like to have a little extra of the sauce on the side. And remember guys, we know we said That is so good. Now, remember you can put anything you want in there. You could put meat, you could put all these vegetables and other vegetables. You could put completely different vegetables in there, whatever you want. So remember to take pictures, tag me, Instagram, Facebook, Justine Cooks, and have fun with it. Thank you for cooking with me in my kitchen.